Hello people of the internet and my fizzies, and welcome to a brand new special video I have up for you today. So it has been quite a while since I've actually done a discussion video. I believe the last time I've done one of these is when I talked about Vine, you know, that app that died like 6 months ago. So basically in this discussion video, what I want to talk about is really my whole entire high school experience. Now the whole purpose of this is to really show you guys the mistakes I've made, and hopefully you don't make the same mistakes that I did in high school. Now these mistakes I've made are really applicable to any new environment that you adapt to, but high school is a really good example of this. So in other words, this video is going to be a bit more serious than most of my other videos, so I'm going to apologize in advance if you get the feels. But before I get started, I just wanted to say something. I am not making this video so you feel bad for me. The mistakes that I have made in high school have made me into the person I am today, and I don't want you guys to feel bad for me for experiencing these things. I really don't know how to phrase it well, but I think you get my point. Anyways, let's get into the topic of high school, starting with freshman year. If I had to describe high school in one word, it would be overrated. Now the high school I went to was Houston Christian High School. It was a private school and it was also college prep. So when I entered in my freshman year, I expected all of my classmates to be really elitist or something like that. Because I mean, this was a pretty tough high school to get into, or at least what I've heard. But then what I discovered is that there's a lot of people that are so much smarter than me that I couldn't even imagine. And then there's other people. But if I can recall freshman year, I remember it being kind of difficult because it was a whole new environment and it was the first time I've ever experienced high school classes and all, and it was a bit rigorous because of all the academics and such. As for my social aspect, I remember just hanging out with a couple of friends like during lunch and such, and that was pretty much it. I also had a social life outside of school as well. And then we get to sophomore year. Yeah, I don't think anybody really remembers their sophomore year. It was seriously the easiest academic year of high school, without a doubt. Sophomore year was basically like freshman year, except that when you go into freshman year, you have all of these difficulties mainly because it's just a whole new environment and whatnot. But now that you get into sophomore year, you already experienced those things, so it's almost like a continuation. The reason why sophomore year is so easy is because the academics don't really get much harder. They pretty much stay the same way. The only thing I really remember of sophomore year was it was pretty much the year where I stopped having a social life at school, which I will get into detail later on. And then we get into junior year. Oh my gosh, I hated junior year. Junior year was without a doubt the hardest year for me. I mean, it was because the academics got harder, but it was mainly because of the sheer amount of it. I mean, there was just so much I couldn't handle it. Junior year was also the first year where I really had to start worrying about college and everything. I also had to take the SATs and the ACTs, and I had to take them so many times with accommodations, and I also had to take some prep classes for that. It was just too much. On top of that, I had to worry about driving and everything, and if you know me, I hate driving so much. Even though junior year was horrible, I didn't do that bad, although it was the first year that I got a B in a class, and I was pretty upset. But at the same time, I knew I couldn't get an A in that class because it was just ridiculous. And then we finally get to senior year. Oh boy. Now most people will tell you that senior year is going to be the best year of your high school experience, mainly because you're wrapping things up, you eventually know where you're going to for college, and you just stop caring also, and even the academics are easier too. But for me personally, it was the worst year ever in my high school experience. It's a bit shocking when I tell people that because it's really so unusual. Now you may be wondering why. Well, I'll get into that. So remember how I said earlier that sophomore year was pretty much the year where I stopped being social at school? Well, I want to get into detail with that. So I remember coming in my freshman year, I didn't really have much of an interest in getting to know my colleagues in my class, and they didn't really have an interest in me either, so it was kind of like a mutual agreement, you know? So to fill in that social gap that I had, I pretty much socialized online with a bunch of online communities and whatnot. On top of that, I also socialized with a bunch of people that I knew from my middle school, so we would always hang out and stuff like that, like on the weekends or even weekdays. I also basically did the same thing sophomore year. However, when junior year came around, that's when all these online communities started to collapse, and now at that point, I pretty much socialized with them every now and then, and instead of like every day. Even though that was a bit disappointing, I still had my friends from middle school, so I was okay. But I remember around the beginning of senior year that all of those friends that I had, they kind of started to distance themselves away from me. And when that happened, I realized at that moment that I really didn't have any friends in my high school. I mean, sure, I had school friends, which I define as people that you socialize with at school about academics and whatnot, and nothing else outside of that. But what I mean is I didn't have friends, meaning like I didn't have people that I socialized with outside of academics, and you know, those people that want to get to know you besides at an academic level. And as a result of becoming so isolated for such a long time, I started to experience depression for really the first time ever. Now, I've experienced depression before. I would experience it like now and then. It would last for like a couple days or whatnot, but this was like continuous. It would last for months on end. But I've come to realize that friends really help you define your own individuality and your personality, and without those people, you kind of start to lose your self-image. You don't really realize who you are anymore. And that's when I started to have an identity crisis, and I didn't really know what to do with myself. On top of that, I became super insecure about myself because all these people were distancing themselves away from me, and I had no clue why. I started to ask myself, what is wrong with me? On top of this whole social crisis, I actually fell in love with somebody at my high school. Now, I'm definitely not getting into detail of that because that's mushy-gushy stuff, but it was the first time I actually experienced like a love interest with somebody in a really long time. And it just so happened to occur senior year when I was having all of these social problems, of course. But in short, I pretty much knew that the person that I loved was never going to have the same feelings for me. And even though I knew that, I simply just couldn't move on from it. And because of that, I felt more and more miserable about myself. And I simply just couldn't act like myself anymore. I feel like I had to just pretend to be okay and whatnot. But I think the worst part about this whole social aspect was that I didn't really have the guts to even talk to anybody. I was so insecure about myself, thinking that there was something wrong with me, that I didn't want to bother people. And that's why starting sophomore year that I just started sitting by myself during lunch every single day, either working on homework or studying or doing something else. I really felt like if I were to talk to people, I would just be annoying and bothering them. But I would say my all-time low of senior year was during my birthday. Every year during my birthday, I always have some fun social event that I would go out with my friends or do something. But senior year for my birthday, I wasn't able to do anything. Part of the reason was because it seemed like everybody that I knew was distancing themselves from me. And that was the first time I really experienced a birthday where I didn't really have much fun. The only good aspect about that is that I had loving parents that supported me during my birthday, which is something that was just amazing. But my birthday was just another reminder that I really didn't have any friends. However, despite all this negativity about senior year and all of my insecurities, it did get a little bit better near the end. As I got to the last quarter of senior year, I started to not really care, meaning like I didn't really care that I had all these problems senior year because I knew it was going to end pretty soon. I even went to prom, and originally I definitely wasn't going to go, but somebody said that I should, and I was like, might as well. I'm actually quite glad I did because it was a lot of fun. But I will say that graduation was really the best time of my senior year. It was just because there was just this big symbolism and just like everything coming together, all the academic achievements that I made over the years, all the hard work that I put in, and it just all exploded at once. And now that high school is over, I am just absolutely relieved. Overall, my high school experience wasn't great, and I'm not the only person that's probably felt that. However, even though it wasn't great and all, I really try to look at it in a positive perspective. And that perspective being that all of these hardships really made me a stronger individual. But before I wrap things up, I wanted to give you guys some personal advice for those that are getting to high school or adapting into any sort of new environment, whether that be in college or like some business place of some sort. My first word of advice is to never underestimate yourself. When I entered into freshman year, I didn't think that I couldn't do any of the hard classes because I didn't think I was smart enough. I felt so insecure about my abilities that I really didn't think I had the capabilities of taking AP courses. But it turns out I totally could have done it. I mean, I got high A's in both of them. And because of that, I really wish that I pushed myself harder during junior year or sophomore year or any of those other years. My second word of advice, which I really need to take personally, is to please make friends. If you're like me, I know it is super hard to get into a new environment and to try to make friends and whatnot. Like me, it's equivalent to like public speaking. You feel like you're so exposed and you have to just be this perfect being. And even though you may not find the perfect friends and whatnot, just please make some. I've had to make friends that I really had no interest in, but I knew that I had to make some because my social life would just crumble downwards. And that is definitely my biggest regret that I've made in high school. I really wish that I got to know a lot more people in my class because there's some quite amazing people, and I just really wish I got to know them. But my last and final bit of advice, which is something that's a bit cliche, but it's something that you need to hear, which is to never, ever give up. There were so many times in my life in high school where I just wanted to throw in the towel and just go out the easy way. But I kept telling myself that if I were to take the easy way, not only will it affect those around me, but it'll also affect me personally. That's why I kept pushing myself and kept telling myself that things will definitely get better, which they really do. So if you're borderline feeling that there's just nothing you can do, feeling that you're just hopeless, believe me, you're not hopeless. Even though you may not see it, there are people around you that really care and watch over you. And even though you will make mistakes, the good thing about mistakes is you can learn from them and not make the same mistakes over and over. And quite honestly, that's just how you live life. That's just how things are, and they always will be, no matter what place you are. I remember when I took my AP course this senior year, I wanted to give up so badly. And even though I was super close, I kept pushing myself. I kept telling myself it will get better. And in the end, I got a great grade, and I think I did well in the AP exam. I think I really did, but I have no clue. But the point is, after I pushed myself so hard, I got such a reward after it, which is feeling just super accomplished about myself. And in the end, by taking those AP exams, I reassured myself that I really am ready for college, and I'm ready to face the new world and a new perspective. But I'm going to end the video here, guys. I'm sorry it was a bit serious, but it's something that I'm really hope that you take my advice from, because this is something that I've lived, and I really don't want you guys to experience the same tragedies that I have in the past. But I want to thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope I can do another discussion video later in the future. I hope you guys can like, favorite, subscribe, and become a Fizzy today, and I will see you guys in the next video that will be a little bit more happy and stuff like that. Bye, guys!